Introduction to Renaming Your Music Files with SongKong Music Tagger. This video is an introduction to renaming files with SongKong. We show you the basics of renaming our music files and some things to consider. We have set up some test data consisting of 3 albums. The first album is by Green Day. Now notice with this album, although the file names look reasonable, there is actually no metadata. The second album is a classical music album by Alfred Brendel, but notice that currently it is stored in a folder named after the composer lists, not really the album artist. For classical, we usually want to organize by the album performers, not the composer or composers. The third album is a compilation album called the 80s Collection 1980, and also notice it consists of 2 discs, although all the files are stored in one folder. So that is our test data. Let's go over to SongKong and start rename files. So we have already selected the folder. Let's select the rename files task and the default profile. Using the rename files task, we can rename your songs based on their metadata. It is common to do this after a successful run of fixed songs, so that the metadata in the file name matches the metadata in the files, or because you want to change what metadata fields the file name contains. For example, from using track number and title to track number, artist and title. We can also use rename files tasks to move files to a new root folder, and we can move matched songs to a different folder to unmatched songs. Unlike fixed songs with the default settings, rename files does not do anything we need to change some settings. One thing it is important to understand is that SongKong splits a file into 3 different components. The base folder is the shared part of the folder path that is common to all the music files, such as C Music. Subfolder comprises the rest of the folder path. This is likely to match some of the song's metadata, such as album artist and album. File name is the last part of the path, the file name within the folder. When we start the rename files task for the folder selected, SongKong guesses the split between the base folder and the subfolder. It is important that this split is correct because rename only modifies the subfolder and file name parts, and move only modifies the base folder part. Here, the base folder has been set incorrectly. If the base folder is set incorrectly, we can modify it by shifting the components of the path to or from the subfolder. So what we want to do is simply shift the subfolder part into the base folder part. The Rename Files tab is used to rename files, i.e., modify the value of subfolder and file name to use the provided rename mask based on the metadata in our files. By default, this option is set to no. We can decide to rename songs based on how and if they have been matched. Usually the best choice is yes if matched to a release. This ensures that songs are only renamed if matched to a MusicBrainz or Discogs release. This in turn ensures that complete albums of songs are renamed and therefore kept together. Alternatively, the yes if matched to a release or song option can be used. This additionally allows songs that have been matched to a MusicBrainz song but not a release. The yes if has metadata option allows any song to be renamed, even if it is not matched by SongKong, as long as it contains the basic metadata of title, album, and either artist or album artist. This option allows SongKong to be used for any collection of songs, even when the songs could not be found in the MusicBrainz or Discogs databases. This can be a risky option and is not recommended in normal circumstances. The Yes for All Files option takes this a step further, allowing any song to be renamed regardless of the status of its existing metadata. This is a risky option and is not recommended. Songs will be renamed according to the rename mask selected in the rename mask drop-down, unless the song has the compilation field set. Then it will use the mask selected in the compilation rename mask drop-down. We offer 2 different masks, because it is quite common that we would like to name compilations slightly different to regular albums. There are a large number of predefined rename masks available, but please realize the drop-down only shows the mask name, not the actual mask. The mask name is simply an indication of what the mask should do. We can view and edit the actual mask and create new masks within preferences if required. This is explained in a later tutorial. We can use rename files to only rename the file name and leave the subfolder unchanged by enabling the rename file name part only option. We are going to change the rename mask to this one because it includes a folder level for multi-disc albums. and the compilation to this one that includes the artist as part of the file name, since for various artists' compilations, this is going to differ from the album artist for all tracks, so it gives us a bit more information in the file name. The 3 examples change as we select a different rename mask. Let us switch to the Move Files tab. The Move Files tab is used to move files by changing their base folder. We can move songs that are matched to a release, so they are rooted at the selected Move folder. This replaces the folder set as the base folder in the Basic tab. And we can move files that SongKong could not match to a release, so they are rooted at the selected Move Unmatched folder. Again, this replaces the folder set as the base folder in the Basic tab. A common way of managing music collections is to move songs from an unsorted folder to a fixed folder as they are identified. Within SongKong, this can be accomplished by setting a Move folder, then using rename files to move identified files from their current folder to the Move folder. But we are not going to use this feature in this video, so let's just select the Start button. Now it shows the progress. There are not many files to rename, so it does not take long to complete. At the end, it generates a report. This is very similar to the report created by other tasks, such as fixed songs. We can see that the 45 songs from the 3 albums were loaded, but only 31 renamed. Let's go to the Browse menu, and then the Browse by Folder menu. We can see 3 folders. Let's select the first folder, Alfred Brendel. We can see that all songs had previously been matched to both MusicBrainz and Discogs, and all files have been updated. Then select the folder beneath that matches the album name. And now select a file to see what modifications have been made. Now, because this report is for the Rename Files task, the only thing that can be modified is the file name, and we can see that it has. Note the album folder is now Alfred Brendel. Before it was Lists, and it matches the value of the album artist metadata field. Now select the Green Day artist folder, and then Album. Notice none of the files have been updated. And if we select a file, it is obvious why. There is almost no metadata in the file, and therefore because we set the rename files based on metadata option to yes, if matched to release value, no songs were renamed. Let's go to the 3rd album. All songs were renamed. And if we go to the album folder, and then select that folder, we can see there are now subfolders for each disc. And if we select one of these disc folders and a file within it, we see there is now the disc folder. For this mask, a disc folder is only created if it is actually a multi-disc album. If we go to File Explorer, we can see the changes match with what we saw in the report. The compilation album has multiple disc folders, and the classical album is now an Alfred Brendel folder instead of a Lists folder. Now let's switch to the Options tab. This shows what options were used. All reports are preserved and can be accessed at a later time. Okay, let's just briefly see what a rename mask looks like. So let's close this report. Then from within SongKong, we can select the Preferences option from the File menu. Then go to the File Name Mask tab. Then let's select one of the masks we are using and select the Edit button. So we see a name field and a mask field. Below that, some drop-downs to help us create masks, and then some examples. Let's do a simple edit to the mask. If I remove title from the end of the mask, then this is removed from the examples accordingly. Rename Files uses the powerful JavaScript expression language and is very flexible. We explain this in more detail in another tutorial. This is the end of the introductory tutorial on renaming files with SongKong, and we hope you have found it useful.